I actually really like this album, The Equinox. Whilst it may not be as captivating as the first album, or certainly not as impressive as the magnificent accomplishment that was Stress the Extinction Agenda, what we have with The Equinox is a phenomenally impressive work. Like, this is a very manicured and considered album. I think what happens to listeners is they don't find this release as immediately, they don't want to revisit it as frequently or as immediately as the first album, with its kind of full of great hooks on the first album, and then that kind of in kind of pleasurably invasive production, kind of mentally, neurologically kind of gripping, that hypnotizing production on Stress the Extinction Agenda. And then with the Equinox, there's an attempt here at some sort of, I don't want to say opus so much, odyssey. There you go. Like there's obviously the skits which have been pointed out as being kind of filler or unnecessary. I it makes me fascinated with the project. Like if like I don't just want to be bopping my head the whole time. I mean that's all well and good, but I find it pleasurable to try and think, oh wow, what were they going for here, and kind of listening and putting my head toward the speaker a bit more. Okay, cool. Like this is, it's more enjoyment. Like I have no complaints personally. Usually, the more thought that goes into an album, the better. If there are complaints about this album, maybe it's that some, based upon my summation of some of the more negative or mixed reviews on Rate Your Music, is that people think too much thought went into it and it falls on its face. I appreciate the effort. To read out the background information on this particular album, The Equinox is the third and final album by heralded Queen's hip-hop duo Organized Confusion. It was released in 1997 on Priority Records. The group branched out to work with a number of outside producers, including Diamond D, Showbiz, Buck Wild, and Rock Wilder. The effort is a concept album about the lives of two black teens. Included on the album are two ambitious tracks, In Vitro and Hate. The former gives voice to the unborn, with Pharaoh Monch and Prince Poe rhyming as unborn twins, one hoping for their mother to get an abortion, the other praying for a chance to live, respectively, while the latter features Monch and Poe rhyming as white supremacists. In Vitro follows in the same steps as Stray Bullet from the group's previous album, giving voices to things that cannot speak. Now, the critical reception tab here, it seems quite positive, I will say. AllMusic called The Equinox an album full of stimulating lyrics and well-arranged instrumentation. Spin wrote that the production is rhythmically and melodically expressive. The Chicago Tribune wrote, devoid of pop hooks, the album is a gem of underground economy, crisp drum tracks, thunderous bass lines, and simple keyboard, horn, or guitar loops. And at least two reviews I'd like to read out aloud from the Rate Your Music 2000s. And first published here, well, at least still available, is GOZ's classic, May 22nd, 2007. The last chapter in the trilogy of Organized Confusion. The first album was a reflection of the positive era of hip-hop and a demonstration how far an MC could take his rhymes. The second album was a plethora of different feelings and emotions, while still stretching the limits of the MC. How would Pharaoh Monch and Prince Poetry make their third album? Their final album, The Equinox, is a conceptual album that tells a story about two wildcats named Life and Malice. I don't want to give away too much of it. Some people were ostracized by the concept, so this album was tossed aside. It wasn't panned, it was just overlooked. Therefore, The Equinox is the underrated from the underrated group. Let's start with the production. Unlike the first two albums, OK leaves most of the production to outside producers like Diamond D, Buck Wild, Showbiz, Rock Wilder, Rashid, and Casper. Out of 21 tracks, Pharaoh and Poe only produced 6. The production is solid. To me, it kind of feels like they have a certain nighttime feel to them. They're not dark or anything, but I can't really explain it. Lyrically, OK is as tight as ever. This is all one big story, so unfortunately there's no song like Releasing Hypnotical Gases or Bring It On here. But what would an OK album be without that OK innovation, right? Two tracks that I really liked were the unique Hate and In Vitro. Hate was Poe and Monch rapping as bigots, and In Vitro has them rapping as unborn babies, one wanting to be aborted and the other wanting to see life. I especially like In Vitro. It is one of the most unique songs I have ever heard from any rapper, and it completely blows Stray Bullet out of the water. So what's the problem with this album? The concept wasn't executed in the best way. Sometimes the concept works well, but other times you forget that this is a conceptual album. For a flawless conceptual album, check out Prince Paul's A Prince Among Thieves. I recommend this to all rap fans. Non-fans might like this. Too bad Organised Confusion broke up after this. Sigh. And then from BK Bance on July 18th, 2007, why the hell is this album rated so low? I simply don't understand the reason for it. In Vitro is one of the craziest conceptual songs you'll ever hear, and something really unexpected. Numbers cleverly uses numerical values in the most diverse of ways, practically showcasing OK's skills on the mic. Is the whole theme of the album about OK role-playing as two different characters really any reason to rip on this very solid album? It certainly doesn't hinder the quality of the tracks on this album. The way I see it, Organised Confusion's entire library consists of 4+ rated releases, and although this isn't the greatest album they've put together, it still shits on an unhealthily huge quantity of other hip-hop. Yeah, the final words I'd like to share here is I think this is a worthy entry in the trilogy of Organised Confusion's studio discography. Very impressive and commendable album. I have no major complaints about it, to be honest. It may... if this is just some group's debut album and they never released anything else, we'd think it was an unsung classic. So let's get some perspective together and appreciate this classic for what it is.